Welcome to the International School of Tailoring. My name is Reza and this is your 13th lesson of our How to Make a Bespoke Jacket series. In the previous lesson, we learned about the purpose of the body canvas. In today's lesson, I'd like to talk you through the specific canvas construction that we're going to use for the traditional model. What's really important to understand here is that every style, material, figuration, fit requires its own construction. We can't just use one construction for everything. That's just not going to happen. So, when we are designing the construction of our canvas, we have to consider the aesthetics, the body of the person we're making things for, the material, and all of that together to get proper results. So, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to explain to you the construction that we're going to use for our model and why. That should help you with your evaluation as you're continuing forwards during this process. You ready? Let's go. Okay, let's have a moment and look at the illustration that represents the canvas construction of our model. The white lines represent the fabric panel cut out along with the inlays. These wide white stripes represent the inlays, and the white lines are of course the chalk lines that we had on our fabric. Now the orange lines represent the body canvas and the blue lines represent the chest canvas, that's the horsehair. So the model that we're going to use, this canvas construction, is industry standard. For a conventional jacket, 95% of tailors worldwide use this model with a few variations here and there. So what's the model? Well, let's begin with the body canvas, the orange lines. The body canvas is basically a duplicate of our fabric panel along with the inlays. You can see that it follows the outer shape with a little bit of an addition all the way around the front edge, with the exception of the side. The side kind of like cuts into the forepart and goes all the way down. Why does it do that? Well, canvas rolls are not always wide enough, especially back in the days. So if a forepart would get very wide, tailors couldn't really get 2 canvases out of 1 meter of canvas, or 4 parts out of 1 meter of canvas. And so what they would do is they would simply reduce the side, which we don't need anyway for a conventional jacket, and then they would simply just remove that and bring it all the way down and continue with the rest of the work. Only on very wide hip shapes do we need extra canvas in the hips. On a conventional jacket, we don't need that, so we can just simply remove that. Now, what you are going to notice is that there is a V shape in the shoulders. That V shape we haven't covered yet, but it's called a wedge. What a wedge does, I'm going to cover that in depth in the next lesson, but for now, let me just briefly explain. A wedge is simply a cut that has been made in the shoulders, opened up, an extra piece of fabric is inserted in that area so that the shoulder becomes longer in that area compared to the rest of the surface of our material. Now, why do we need a wedge? It's very simple. If you look at our shoulder area, shoulder, neck, chest, and all of that, this entire area, it has a negative surface curve. Fancy word. In simple terms, it looks like a saddle. It is concave and convex at the same time. Whenever we take a flat material and we put it on our shoulders, on our chest, all around here, what's going to happen is that the material is going to sit on our shoulder point, on our chest, and the rest of our body, but the hollowness that we have in between our shoulders is not going to have anything sitting on it. So there's going to be a gap between the material and our body. It's going to drum, as we say. What does that drumming do? Well, it's first of all very uncomfortable because you're going to have a lot of pressure here, but also the garment is simply going to break as you're wearing it. So it doesn't really give a nice aesthetic. So what we do is we add this extra material to make the material longer in that area so that it can sit in the hollowness of our shoulders. Before I show you how that looks on a body canvas, let me also mention that the grain of the body canvas is exactly the same grain as the fabric that we have cut. So let me show you how this wedge looks on my body. If we put a canvas without a wedge in the shoulder area on my shoulder, what will happen is that it's going to sit on my clavicle, that's my collarbone, and on my shoulder. But the hollowness that's between them is not going to be accommodated for because we don't have any shape in the material. So by the time the sleeve goes into the armhole, that's going to pull these 2 points apart. And what you have, just as you can see now, is this bubble, this drumming effect that we have between the shoulder and the clavicle. Now, if we would make a cut into the shoulder and allow this area to open up, the canvas is going to sit completely flush against my body shape, which is of course more flattering. So let's make a cut in here and see the difference. Check for now, there is a bubble and there is this mess going on which simply breaks as I move in the garment. But have a look at this. So what we have here is our canvas with a flat shoulder area. There is no shape at all. However, if I would undo the stitches that are holding this together and I make a cut into the canvas, which I already have, and I open this shoulder area up, what you see is this black area that is revealing. That is supposed to show you how much material is added as extra length. Okay, so it's as if I've added this black area to the shoulder. Now, if I would base this up and put this on my shoulder, you're going to see a massive difference. You can already tell there is a lot more shape. There is a hollowness already built into the shoulder area of the canvas. This wedge makes the top of the shoulder piece longer relative to the area underneath it because, of course, there is more material at the top and it gradually fades into nothing. So let's see how this looks on me. We've opened up the cut that's in the shoulder area, and now that I'm putting it on my shoulder, what you see is a hollow shape, which of course is also present on my body. Now, if I go with my fingers over the shoulder area, there is no more drumming. There is no more tension or gap between the canvas and my body. It sits flush right into that hollowness that my shoulder has. Plus, if I turn around, you see that the end of the canvas is moving outwards and forwards, which of course is necessary for the room that the top of my shoulder needs to take. That's why we put a wedge in the shoulder area. So now that you've seen the wedge in action, let's talk about horsehair, aka chest canvas, as indicated by the blue lines on the illustration next to me. Horsehair is a very interesting material. Why? Because it's very strong in the horizontal weave, but very weak in the vertical weave. And what that does to horsehair is that it allows your canvas to be programmed by simply determining in which direction you're going to position the strong weave. Now, the way horsehair is cut is like the following. The shoulder and the armhole area have exactly the same shape as our body canvas and also have that wedge in the shoulders. But the break line area and the lower half of it are not cut the same. So let's talk about the break line area. Horsehair is usually cut about 3/8, half an inch, sometimes 1/4 of an inch behind the break line so that it doesn't go on top of it or over it. If the horsehair goes over the break line or even on top of the break line, it becomes very difficult for us to fold and crease our lapel back and have it sit nice and flat on our chest. Now, the bottom part of horsehair is also, for the same reason, not extended, because if it would be extended, what's going to happen is that the garment is going to be very stiff and is going to collapse very easily as you're kind of like bending forwards. So, therefore, we bring the horsehair about 1.5 to 2 inches above the intake point of the dart that we have on our forepart and give it that curved shape so that it steers clear of the suppression point of our forepart. That prevents the forepart to break quickly as we are moving into it. The grain of the horsehair is positioned so that the strongest weave, the strongest grain, is running across the chest. Now, what that does to the chest is that it emphasizes and kind of like strengthens the side of the garment. And if you have an easy fit garment and you put the horizontal horsehair in that direction, what that does to your chest is it creates kind of like a round emphasis on your chest. Most Savile Row garments, especially the ones back in the days, had that look. Very, very, very traditional, which is exactly what we need for our traditional model. So, to sum up, if you cut out your body canvas as I've illustrated here, and on top of that you put the horsehair as I've illustrated here, you're gonna have a very standard body canvas construction that works for 95% of the world. Now you might be wondering, hey, aren't we going to use domette in the construction of our canvas? Yes, we are. The reason why I didn't mention domette is that I want you to focus on the main players. That's the body canvas and the horsehair. Those are the materials that actually have a role to play in the whole outcome of the style and the aesthetic of the garment. Domette is just there to cover up the horsehair. That's all. Also, if you're thinking, hey, aren't we gonna have all these darts in our canvas? What about them? Yes, we are gonna have darts in our canvas. However, before we go ahead and put darts in our canvas, I want you to have a deep understanding about darts. So, in the next lesson, I'm going to unpack everything about darts so that by the time we're making the canvas and putting them in the canvas, you have all the understanding about them that there needs to be. Also, since we've been talking about all these materials, I can understand that depending on your location, it's very difficult for you to source body canvas, horsehair, domette, all these things. So, to make things easier and a lot more practical for you, we have put together two bundles. The first bundle is called the foundation bundle, with which you'll be making the traditional model. The second bundle is called the improvers bundle, with which you'll be making the pagoda model. Those bundles will have all the materials that I use in the lessons so that you can work with me without being worried about what is this result going to be depending on the material that I'm going to be using. You know, it's so difficult to source from one supplier, then from the other, then go to that shop, then that's out of stock. All of that will be together for you. So, how can you purchase these bundles? Simply click on the link in the description of this video. That should take you to our website, and there you can treat yourself to one of these bundles. Remember, you're not just investing in materials, but also the bright future ahead of you. My name is Reza, this was today's lesson, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care. You ready? Let's go! Now that you've seen the wedge in action, let's talk about horsehair, aka chest hair. Chest canvas! Reza, this is not 1970s porn, it's a tailoring video. Let's talk about the chest canvas.
Toch?
Ja.
Was goed, toch?
Yes.